This August 16th, 2016 meeting of the Villa Rica Planning Zoning Board of Appeals is called to order at 6:03. And we have a quorum of 3 members. The agenda tonight consists of the approval of the agenda, old business, which is approval of the minutes, new business, discussion on administrative matters, which will center on reading the consideration of the revised Board of Appeals bylaws, staff comments, public comment, and adjournment. Are there any additions, changes, comments about the agenda?
Chairman, I'm sorry, is this on? Okay. Chairman, I wanted to raise the issue of the unfortunate issue, to be honest with you.
What issue?
I believe since, Chairman, you are running for Ward 4,
That's correct.
that you are not permitted to sit on this board, but I'm double checking my records.
I think if I'm elected to Ward 4,
Okay. And I just wanted to
the
ask,
bylaw says no elected official of the city can be on this particular board.
and I just wanted to ask staff for clarification on that.
The city of Villa Rica did request its city attorney to review whether or not current seated appointees could maintain those positions after having qualified for public office. The answer is that they are entitled to continue their service. However, once they are elected, if that should come to pass and sworn in, they'll have to resign at that time.
Excellent, great. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. Good.
Now I have mixed emotions about whether Michael wins or not.
Agreed.
Well, don't hold it against me.
So is it appropriate for a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes.
I so move.
Second.
All in favor? Ayes have it. Old business, approval of the minutes.
I move we approve the minutes as submitted.
I wasn't going to read 7 pages. I reviewed them and I don't see any issues. Matthew, are you comfortable with the minutes as presented?
I will mention it doesn't bother me. There's a little typo. Several times I was referred to as Mr. Thomas rather than Mr. I don't care. So long as somebody wouldn't raise an objection. I don't mean to make somebody go back and,
I can fix that on the sheets. It will
Okay.
reflect the signature.
I have no.
I've been called a lot worse.
For the record, that should be changed.
Yes.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes with the corrections
amended,
to
yeah.
Mr. Flowers' name?
I move so.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Matthew?
Are you in favor, Matthew?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. I'm in favor.
Okay.
I checked out.
The ayes have it. New business is our corrected, revised zoning board of appeals bylaws. And Matthew, you did most of the work on that. You want to start us off on anything that you think is particularly appropriate to talk about?
Yes, absolutely, yes, I do. I'm sorry, thank you, David. Sorry, did you come in late?
Are you looking for this?
Yes, thank you very much, sir. After our last meeting, Janet Hyde emailed me some provisions that were actually from the, thank you, sir, that were actually from the Planning Commission's bylaws. And some of them I thought were applicable, I went ahead and incorporated, particularly, I think it was regarding the, blah, 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 oh my gosh, I'm sorry, invalidity of vote. The other provisions, though, we already had language in our bylaws pertaining to those sections. So I thought that I would just allow maybe some discussion if you wanted to incorporate those or to keep that language as we had it.
Question is, should we standardize language with other parts of the city? Is that kind of where you're headed?
For the most part, yes, Chair. That is correct. I don't believe we necessarily have to. I don't know if staff has any comments on that, but we could have our own provisions independent of the planning commission, but these were just some things that were offered to us that I wanted to bring the board's attention to.
From a staff perspective, obviously, commonality is always good. The affirmative vote of majority, so that it's not misunderstood. A lot of folks misunderstand what majority means. Majority means 50% plus one. For instance, sometimes they'll spell out that you have to have, 2 members, 3 members, 5 members, et cetera. But in this case, it's 50% plus one of whatever you have at the table. So just know that, and that's not of those presidents have that amount on your commission. And you have 5 members on your commission?
That's correct.
All right. So you have to have at least 3 members present at any time for.
But right now, we only have 4 seats occupied. So that means like today, we have to have at least 3 people present to conduct business.
You have to have 3 at all time.
Well, true.
Yes, yeah, regardless whether that's filled or not. And then I think we advertised for applications. I don't know that we've gotten any more in. We've got to advertise for some Historic Preservation Commission members as well. So, and then, so the question was here, where if a commission, this was G that you put in, that if a commission member votes on a recommendation which the commission member has a conflict of interest, the member's vote shall be voided.
I did incorporate that, yes.
Okay, so you've got a concern there of two issues. One, you have an oath of office that you're taking. Second, any conflict of interest. So in this case, you actually potentially can disenfranchise whoever your applicant is. You're sort of the last stopgap, because they can always appeal back to the council before it goes to the Superior Court. So as long as you don't disenfranchise them on being able to come back for a meeting or a hearing, but usually those votes are going to be, on a hearing of so hopefully the conflict of interest, and more importantly, you sort of have to define what conflict of interest is. And that's most important if you have not already done so. Because believe it or not, the interpretation in Georgia, even the Georgia Municipal Association is, if you have a financial benefit of $10,000 or more personally, that's conflict of interest. If you look at the state's ethics law as far as conflict of interest, the state's ethics law doesn't even have the phrase conflict of interest in it. So from a staff perspective, you'll really want to decide what is a conflict of interest, and that is very, very critical to you.
We have it listed as determined in accordance with the city charter, which is under review. And the city charter is a standard document available to us to review at any point. So is it better to just leave it as in accordance with the city charter, or do we need to spell it out in here?
Threshold, believe it or not, for conflict of interest for an elected official versus, say, a appointed official such as myself are 2 different thresholds. Georgia law gives them a lot more latitude as elected officials. So,
Still, shouldn't we wait until they get through messing with that? If they define anything like conflict of interest for employees or appointed boards, then we can see what it says.
Will the city charter differentiate between elected and appointed?
There's some question that's come up whether or not they're even going to do an ethics ordinance or an ethics board over and above what they have in there. So most of their ethics things, I think, sort of are kind of vague, if you will. Some of it, if you go back and read the charter, right now it's left interpretation. So I wouldn't be so confident to say, let's get ours and just point to that document, especially if that document could be in transition, but that document could take, who knows if it'll even get revised, say, in the next 6 months, a year, 2 years. So from, I was asked if there was staff input, and it's like, just be careful on that, and define what you personally think. Is that a financial interest in whatever's before you? For instance, like the Department of Revenue has very spelled out definitions of what a conflict of interest is when they're going out and doing audits, for instance. So define what your conflict of interest or threshold is, or look at what other similar boards consider that, or certainly we can ask, for some guidance from the city attorney to offer you up some language, for instance.
As it stands right now, David, there is not a conflict of interest standard for appointed boards in the city charter or city code.
It's vague. I can pull the charter up, it's not as cut and dry as you would like.
Okay.
Is the conflict of interest that Matthew pointed out in this separate piece of paper, that, it says has an interest, is that too general, or?
What's an interest? I mean,
Yeah.
you tell me, what's an interest?
Or any interest. I have an interest in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
I'm interested in lots of things.
Financial or
That's why I have
economic
a
interest, I guess.
DVR.
Well, if it's if you have some ownership interest,
So is it financial interest? Is
Yeah.
it personal interest? Is it
but
relative?
ownership, I think, is pretty well
Yeah.
understood in relation to real estate, which is
Yeah.
what we're dealing with.
Suppose
gotta have
suppose my uncle, owns, the adjoining property.
And then I was gonna say that, plus, familial relationships, if you have something down through what, first cousin, who has an ownership interest, I don't wanna get into third cousin twice removed.
Well,
Okay?
this,
This is Georgia, but
this language does include
you
references
get
to,
Do you need a pen?
you can tell I'm looking for
Okay.
one. This language does include, members, mother, father, children, siblings, or in-laws as having an interest
Yeah.
included, so. And then I would just clarify, thank you, ma'am. I would just clarify then that maybe we say a financial interest or a familiar interest as defined by an interest by the mother, father, so forth.
Surely there's some boilerplate somewhere that can be used.
Mhm.
Plagiarism is for scientific research and papers like that, not for government.
It's the
We
best
can
form
do
of
that,
flattery, as we call it. It's
but there's gotta be some
R&D.
boilerplate kind of, that we can,
I can research that, or we could use this language that we have in front of us.
I was about to say, it goes back to what I was saying before. Matthew's done such a great job with this, and we may need to refine some of these things, but with the city going through its exercise, probably, to revamp the city charter, I still think, rather than spend all of our time, we're gonna wind up with a better set of bylaws.
we kind of put it off and say, we'll revisit.
Yes, let's revisit some of these things, and in the meantime, we'll deal with them as a group if they come up. But rather than trying to define it right down to a gnat's eyebrow or something, I think they're sufficient in most cases now where we are, especially on that particular issue. Now, I know Villa Rica's a small place, and so when you've got
A lot of people are vested in a lot of parts of
Right.
America.
Right, family and friends and all that sort of stuff. So we could have one, but,
I probably have seen half a dozen, maybe a dozen, just in the year and a quarter I've been here. They do come up.
we haven't visited, but we've had two cases so far all year.
Exactly. And normally your board doesn't see a lot, so, staff can certainly research and offer you up a paragraph. I mean, as the chair says, there is template language out there. This isn't rocket science. So, R&D is rip off and duplicate. And, I'm all for it as long as it applies to what your needs are.
Well, I'm okay with that. I just didn't want to have Matthew or somebody do a lot of brain damage trying to.
Oh, their brain damage is already done.
If we're done with conflicts, I do want to talk about board member terms, not officers, but terms. And it says that each board member, appointed by the city council, and then for a 3-year term. But, in our case, we've had some people that came on in pretty close proximity to each other. And I was going to say, perhaps we ought to designate each term by the year in which it expires and see about having the term expire on the last day of a certain year.
Some of the commissions and boards do have staggered terms, but I think that has been declared by the city council. I mean, the city council
Defined it this way?
directed staggered terms. And to my knowledge, they haven't done that for us since we didn't exist.
Well, and if we submit these bylaws to them for approval, and it's got staggered terms in there, wouldn't that work?
If I'm not mistaken, you all, and I know this sort of changes, you already have established length of terms
3
from
years.
your original appointment. Generally, you'll set it up where you will continue, and then usually you select among yourselves the staggered terms. And there is some phrase in the charter that might help you move that forward, if you will. And generally, it's in the order that y'all were appointed. So the council, has that wherewithal, so that you have staggered terms, meaning that someone may very well, your terms are what, 3 years?
3.
All right. So it's very well that, at the end of 3 years, someone's going to continue to move forward on the board for another year each, while appointments then are considered re-up. And then that way you eventually get staggered terms. I know that when they redid the charter and incorporated wards, there was specific on how they were going to do that in the city. So there is a mechanism by act that can actually, if it's an act of council, be able to sign those so that you know what terms renew, so that not everyone renews. So some of you may end up serving 2 years and then are up for renew. Some may serve the full 3, et cetera. But really, that's going to have to take an act of the council. And if they ask for staff suggestions, usually I tell them is go to the board and see if someone wants to volunteer to get in those slots, number one. If not, then number 2, then figure out in what order they were appointed and pick it that way.
Well, aren't the 3 of us, didn't we all come on this year?
At the same time?
Within weeks of each other.
Yeah, I don't recall exactly what the appointments were, but I know that I think you were the last one appointed.
Yeah, but
So-
I'm just saying though, everybody came on since the first of the year.
Yes, yeah, but it allows a mechanism. For instance, if the board members don't come up with a staggered term scenario, then the next process would be to say, you all came on first, you were in the second pool, and then was Ms. Tempe at the same time with you?
She was,
No, I was by
Or was
myself.
she?
Matthew, Sonia, and I were in the first pool
Okay.
approved by the city council.
Exactly. So literally what it would be is, if A doesn't work, we go to B. And step B is the three that were on first serve X, and then the next two would serve, Y. But I usually recommend that the boards try to work that out and present it back to the council.
All right, that was my only thing about membership, was just whether we wanted to talk about staggering those or what.
And hopefully, ideally, with so many folks involved in the campaign, once the election's done, hopefully those folks will want to continue to be involved and potentially step up to be appointed to a board or two.
Matthew, that's all I had to
Okay.
say on that.
If we can step back to the conflict of interest question real quick. When I was drafting the bylaws, I think I was remembering the training that we had with Mr. Mecklin, and he passed this out, and I'll pass it over to y'all. And my understanding was that would apply, the conflict of interest provisions there would essentially apply to us. It's my understanding now that it's not really clear whether that applies to us. And so my thought would be to take that language and basically incorporate it into our bylaws. And that would handle our conflict of interest issue, I believe. I mean, do you agree that?
Yeah, if you were to strike the part of elected versus appointed versus
Right.
employee. And
Clarify that it applies to the ZBA members and not the elected folks and all that stuff.
David is an appointed officer. I don't know that we fall into that appointed officer.
Right, but I would use that language, though, I would strike, instead of saying elected official, appointed officer, employee, I would say ZBA member.
Members of
And
the
I would just-
ZBA.
Change all the language, members of the ZBA or member, yeah, as defined
something
terms.
like
And that we use that language.
And you're absolutely right. And the reason that's very, very critical is that was the whole determination of whether or not those who qualified for public office could continue servicing in the capacity, is whether or not they were an appointed officer. So that was the key part. So if you change that part and then use the rest of the language, certainly you could move for that. That's just the will of the board.
Y'all any thoughts on that?
I don't see any problem with incorporating it right now,
Okay,
because we're probably in a year having to go back and look at the bylaws again to see if anything that the city charter has done has changed something. The size of the committee, or the
Right.
length of service, or anything like that, could. Kind of surprised that the city hasn't had another workshop on the city charter, but
There was quite a bit of back-to-back travel and then a couple medical things. So getting a quorum
I
has
understand.
been tenuous. But yes, I do anticipate another one shortly.
Matthew, if you can dump that language into the bylaws.
Okay. That sounds good to you guys? You gentlemen? I'll do that then, that's what we'll do. I will substitute Article 7. Article 7. Yeah, so I will substitute the existing Article 7 for the language from the Villa Rica Code of Ordinances, Appendix A, Code of Ethics and Prohibited Practices, Section 1 through Section 7.
Will that cause you to take invalidity of a vote and make it a separate section, or is that also included in that conflict of interest? because right now it's included in conflict of interest in our bylaws. So would that make it a separate section if you're gonna use that verbiage?
Take a look to see what language they have here that we might like better.
Well, that first section I like there, that where it says, it kind of delineates,
Mm-hmm.
you know, all of the deadly sins if you're acting as a, and I don't think the part about using city property or, I mean, that probably is not applicable to us, but voting on things about which you have an interest is,
At some point, we could have a city employee that lives within the city on this board, right? Not.
You could not have a city employee serving on the board now.
No?
No, that would violate city
conflict
policy.
of interest.
Yeah, city employees cannot hold appointed or elected office.
Yeah, well, on section 4 where it says contracts avoidable and rescindable, I mean, obviously, we're probably not going to be entering it into city contracts. We can substitute the invalidity of a vote language.
Well, I'm talking about in Article 7, conflict of interest. The first sentence is conflict of interest, and then the rest of that is the validity of a vote.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that when I incorporate them, this section 4 that's here,
Okay.
where it talks about contracts voidable, that's not going to really apply to us because we're not going to be entering into city contracts. Instead, I can substitute the language on the invalidity of vote
Okay.
there. That's agreeable, Mr. Flowers, as well?
Yes,
Okay.
So the next discussion item is the membership piece, 3 paragraphs.
Mm-hmm. So our section currently states, as far as the member term, we have a 3-year term here. They have a 1-year term there, which that's set by council. Then we have our 5 members. So Part B there. So that pretty much is that's pretty much Part A. Part B says that no member shall hold elected public office within the city. I don't believe we have anything to that effect in our bylaws as they exist now. So we can incorporate that language or we can disregard it. We do have, on the second part, the second sentence of Part B does have language regarding removal of members, and we do have language pertaining to that. I thought we did.
Given some of the issues that we're having getting our 5th board member,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like this last portion of the last sentence of 3A, or until their successor shall be appointed.
Yes. Yeah, you need to say that.
Okay.
All of this looks fine, except for shall be appointed for a one-year term, beginning February 1st through January 31st.
Okay, so in section 3.03 in our current bylaws, we have member terms. Each member shall have a term of office for 3 years. Then we can add the language, or until their successor shall be appointed. Is that? Okay.
Sworn in, what do we say?
Well, yeah.
You're
once
not
they're
a member
appointed,
until you're sworn in.
They can be sworn in within, before the next meeting, generally. City council meetings are on a Tuesday, and the first Tuesday, we meet on the third Tuesday. So that's 2 weeks to get sworn in. That should be okay.
All right.
Any other?
And now that I look at this, I don't see a provision in here regarding, I guess, the removal of a member, except for in the case where that member is has, excessive unexcused absences or absences without notice. I didn't know if we wanted to touch on that, or,
It has to be done by council, right?
Yeah, from a legal standpoint, you all cannot remove your own members. There's provisions in the charter for removal, which rests with the council. So only that you can make a recommendation to the council, but it has to be an act of council.
so in that case, it might be kind of repetitive to put it in the bylaws then, if that's already the council, the code, the charter policy, so. We can just leave it without,
Leave it without, and
let that govern it, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I would think that if the board voted in favor of replacement of a particular member, we voted, or the majority of people voted to replace that member, and we took it to the council, and then they could act on it.
Right.
And if they say, we're going to appoint somebody different, then, they can,
Yeah, I agree with that, I think, so you're saying basically like if we find, if one of us moves to add an agenda item to state, removal of Michael because, for whatever reason, then you can just raise it and then vote on it, and it is what it is, so.
city council.
so,
Well,
yeah.
of course, hopefully, somebody moving
Recommend
or
to
something.
city council.
If it's an amicable divorce, they would just resign, which we do make provision for in that.
Right,
But this is if we had to, somebody was being disruptive or,
there are certain boards and commissions in Villa Rica that have had attendance problems with some of the members.
well, I think we
I
could do the
think
same
that's-
thing. We could have a vote and say,
I think that's probably if we're gonna encounter something, that's what we'll encounter.
yeah, I think in our bylaws presently do have some provision in there for attendance.
we do,
Removal on the basis of attendance, yes.
yeah, we do.
It was the other, like for cause, ones that got my attention on that one.
Drinking at the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
being drunk.
So I think we're okay with that. And then the last one was the failure to attend 3 consecutive meetings, which we have 3 consecutive meetings without notice. So I think we're fine there. I mean, I think we talked about that last time. That seemed to be language that we
It
liked.
seems to work with members notifying the secretary that they're not going
Mhm.
to make the meeting.
Right. Yeah, currently we have a member who fails to fulfill their duties and have 3 consecutive absences without notice from regular ZBA meetings may be removed from office by a vote of the ZBA. Then the ZBA may recommend to the council for removal of the member. That's 4.07C.
I don't know that David, we're not qualified to remove from office by a vote of the ZBA.
No, we'd have to,
Yeah.
I thought
We have to, we have
to take it to council.
to recommend to council.
Yeah.
So how would you phrase that?
Well, I think the next sentence says, then the ZBA may recommend to the council for removal of the member. I guess we just want to say, member who fails to fulfill their duties and had 3 consecutive absences without notice from regular ZBA.
Without notice from regular ZBA members may be recommended for
Be
removal.
recommended, yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe recommended,
By a vote of the ZBA.
maybe recommended to the city council for removal by a vote of the ZBA.
Well, could we remove somebody?
No,
And then-
the city council appointed.
I know, I'm not talking about appointing a new replacement. I'm just saying if there was somebody who had a real problem and we needed them gone. You know, because we say in here, you know, Robert's rules controls the meeting. You know, under Robert's rules, there are a lot of things that we could do that we don't ever mention here.
Does it say in here, Robert's rules is your rules of decorum?
It does not.
It
I
did, didn't it?
remember reading
Did
that,
we take that out?
I think we took that out, yeah.
because if so, we're all in violation right now, because we can only speak when recognized by the chair.
Yeah, I know, it's,
And we don't
we're
need to,
a little less formal.
That's probably why you took it out.
yeah. And we don't want
Otherwise,
to,
he's
we don't
not
want to
the
have a
gavel.
sergeant at arms at any time.
Yeah,
Stand at the guard door, sir.
So, yeah, I think it's recommended for removal.
Okay.
I do know that I think the cemetery board and I think maybe even the library board recently dealt with this and incorporated similar verbiage on the same issue. I know that the cemetery board's bylaws were approved by council. I don't believe the library board's has been as of yet, but that language was addressed. In fact, the library board recently had an issue where they actually, I believe, did take act to have the council remove someone.
well, Michael, are you on the cemetery or the Parks and Rec?
Parks and Rec.
I can get that language from the cemetery thing from Connie. Or,
Madam Secretary.
Yeah,
You got it.
it's in our minutes. I mean, we have it.
Um,
Because Jody Mountain, who's an attorney, wrote those up and worked with then Mayor Collins and got them passed.
I think Jody was the one that told me that she was having a problem.
She was having a problem? Oh, yeah.
With-
Yeah, they
with
had,
somebody that
and
wasn't
then,
attending.
and same thing with the library board, you know. And again, you know, life happens, so, you know, someone's on board and they no longer can really make meetings, and you don't want to disenfranchise the process of the governance.
They can make 6 in a row as long as they let somebody know. If things are going, if they hit a rough spot in the road of life, then fine, but they just need to let the secretary know that it won't be there so that,
Not according to this.
no, this says, 3,
There's no rough patches here,
oh, okay.
but you can make rough patches.
Well, we say a member who fails to fulfill their duties and had 3 consecutive absences without notice from regular ZBA meetings, so.
well, there's also a provision that if you're gonna be absent, you have to notify, the member has to notify the chairman.
So,
I think-
so.
I think
so-
we're notifying the secretary rather than.
All right.
I think you can,
Not to throw a wrench in this, so notify Hal. Because I notified Rhonda I wasn't gonna be here last month, didn't I, Rhonda? See, it's a he said, she said. So you probably want to say in writing. In writing could be an email, and, but, you need to have some track record that's like, yeah, you were excused 3 times, or you let us know. You want to be fair to you as a board, and notification is not a he said, she said. So, again, bylaws are like contracts. You try to like polish them off, put them in the drawer, and you never have to go back to them again.
I think the secretary is going to change less often than the chairman. The chairman's a one-year position.
Oh, well, I mean, it currently says a member shall notify the secretary or chairman if the member is unable to attend the meeting.
Okay.
So, and then we can just add in the language there, a member shall notify in writing the secretary or chairman if the member is unable to attend the meeting. So,
So if I write a note and send it by carrier pigeon, that would work?
As long as it's received and it's in writing. You can
Yeah, I sent it. It was up to them, and,
yeah, do we want to clarify that the notice has to be received prior to the meeting?
Yes, otherwise it's,
No good, right?
You show up. and you have
otherwise there's no
quorum.
notice.
You're sitting here, it's like, la, la, let's get our quorum. Oh, I just got 2
I
notices.
have to check my emails before the meeting starts.
Okay.
Any other
Is
issues?
there anything else in there as far as that kind of recommended stuff that was sent over to us?
Does staff have any other comments about the bylaws as we've discussed
Of course
amending?
staff does. So I've read through these
Good.
in the last 30 minutes. Give or take. All right, page 2. C is in Charlie, second from the top. Secretary shall be an employee of the city as designated by the director of the city community development department. The secretary shall be an employee of the city. If you get down into titles, titles change, you have a problem. The reality is that the city, the secretary shall be an employee of the city, and at the end of the day, all those employees really report to the city manager. So it really should be as designated by the city manager or its designee. So,
Okay.
Okay.
so what language do you recommend?
it should say the secretary shall be an employee of the city as designated by the city manager or its designee.
Okay.
B is in Bravo, under section 3.05, terms of office. You have officers who fail to fulfill their duties and have 3 consecutive absences without notice from regular ZBA meetings shall be removed from office by a vote of the ZBA. Obviously, you've addressed that, because y'all can't remove, you can
Yes.
recommend.
I think Matthew was already,
Well, this is for the officers, though. We can't
Yeah,
remove our
this
own
is
officers from
not
the officer
from the.
position.
officers we elect.
That's to say you can't be chairman.
You can't remove them from office.
Yeah.
You can elect new officers,
anymore.
but you're not, this says remove from office by, and.
By a vote of the ZBA, when they elect the replacement.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, but
basically what you really ought to do is, select a new chairman or, officers versus office. I would clean that up a little bit more, so it's not misconstrued on the removal. What you're really doing is, basically that officer or office ought to be deemed vacant, and then you go ahead and select a new. But see that you have verbiage elsewhere on officers on vacancies, by the way, which is interesting. So that's why I said, you might want to just clean that up and just go with the ZBA officers vacancies section.
Okay.
So.
So officers who fail to fulfill their duties and have 3 consecutive absences without notice
Shall be
shall be
considered,
considered to vacate that office.
exactly.
All right, well now, also then, look at 3.04 subsection C. We're cleaning up.
3.04 subsection C,
C.
the secretary shall be an employee of the city.
We just talked about that.
No, where we were talking was a little further down.
This is 3.05 ZBA officer's term of office.
No, 3.04 C, it already says it's designated by the director of the city community development department.
Correct.
But you said a while ago you wanted city manager.
Yeah, this one
Or
is
their
the-
designee.
This is your secretary. So the secretary shall be an employee of the city as designated by the city manager or its designee. So that's your secretary, meaning that's going to be a city staff person. So as a city manager, it's incumbent on me or whoever my designee is to make sure whoever
Right.
your secretary
Don't we
is.
need to clean up this language here in C? Because we don't have a separate secretary officer as one of our members, do we?
No.
That is our honorable secretary sitting right over there.
Right now, yes.
So we don't elect somebody separately than her to hold that office.
Correct.
So,
But she's not going to miss more than 3 meetings because she's not actually one of your, see, on this where it says officers, your secretary, the reason I'm saying you have to clean this up a little is, your secretary's not an officer.
Right.
Officers are only voting.
okay,
The secretary's not a voting officer, and should be very well spelled out that your secretary is not a voting member. You spell out your duties later of your secretary, but it's got to be very clear that that's not a voting member of the ZBA.
well then Matthew, why don't we insert a separate little section here?
Okay, well, section 3.04A says the officers of the ZBA shall consist of a chairman and a vice chairman, it doesn't say
Correct.
secretary.
Mm-hmm.
So she's automatically, the secretary is automatically excluded from being officer.
Right. And so in C, we can say the secretary is a non-elected member who's an employee of the city, as appointed by the city manager or their designee. Something like that.
Yeah, I guess we could just put a separate article in here and just discuss the secretary alone.
Well, see,
And remove all references in this officer section
Yeah.
regarding the secretary.
right, and I don't want to make it cumbersome. So you have section 3.0 that says ZBA officers, and you spelled out chairman, vice chairman. But we then get to section 307, officers' duties, and then you name her as an officer.
Right.
So it's inferred, so that's what I'm saying is that, if she's one of your officers, great. If he or she is an officer, great. But it should state that the secretary is a non-voting member of the ZBA and shall be an employee of the city as designated by the city manager or its designee.
Yeah.
And I think that clears it up.
Yeah, something like that.
So what I'll do is I'll move the language in 30.04C that, as David just cleaned up, and the language in 3.07C, and I'll put it underneath at 3.09, where it
Sounds
just
great.
talks about secretary's duties.
Off in a separate section, yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay. And then I'm suggesting, all right, so because you have a secretary that shall be employed and designated, you're not really going to have a vacancy because we're always going to have, because you're always going to have a secretary. That's the comment. So I'm not so sure if you really need C under 3.06. Because you're always going to have a secretary, but you don't have an office secretary. It's becoming to the city that you're always going to have someone serving as your secretary. But that person's going to be designated by whomever your city manager is or their designee. So I would say strike C together.
Okay.
You have section 3.07, officer duties. I'm honing in on B as in boy. You have the reference to president.
Mm-hmm.
Is that chairman?
Yes.
Okay.
That was a 3 a.m. oversight.
Okay. You have section 3.08 resignation, A is in alpha. It says that a member wishing to resign from the ZBA shall submit a letter of resignation to the secretary.
Can we back up one?
Yes, please.
3.07C, we take that C and move it into 3.09.
That's what we're gonna do.
So, okay, so if you've got a member wishing to resign, they're going to submit a letter of resignation to the secretary. Obviously, it's submitting their resignation to the secretary. Are you asking that to be in writing? It says letter, but, I mean, if they send an email, I mean, that's in writing,
Should
so,
it be to the city council?
pardon me?
Should it be to the city council?
Usually on boards, usually the resignations usually come into the city manager or the clerk. The clerk, in a strong form of mayor form of government, the clerk would actually be to the council. The clerk in this form of government, being a council manager, actually reports to the city manager. So in this case, the communication from the city to the council, you can either send it to the council or you can send it to the city manager. But we're required to reduce all correspondence to the entire council. So if I get a resignation letter, I send it to the entire council. So, you know, in this case, most resignations, believe it or not, come in to myself or the city clerk. In this
Say
case,
city manager's office?
because we're not going to be able to, inform, we have an obligation under policy approved by the council, and that is that we're required to inform the council within 60 days of any vacancy, and then also then we're to recruit potential applicants for the council. So in this case, you really ought to submit their resignation in writing, and you know, the public's not going to necessarily know who the secretary is, but certainly they can submit it to the city manager, or the office of the city manager, it doesn't matter, or the council, or the mayor, or anybody. But at the end of the day, from the liaison from the city to the council is always going to be through the office of the city manager.
Okay.
So,
Submit there instead of A?
I would just say submit their
Letter of resignation
resignation
in writing.
in writing
To the city manager.
the city manager or the city council. I mean, it could be both, and that's fine. As long as we get it and we know that you've officially resigned. Because ultimately, all I'm going to do is inform the council. So that's up to you all.
Well, part C though, that says that the secretary shall notify the city clerk, city manager. city
Yes,
council.
and so I've got a couple things marked in here. So upon receipt of the member's resignation, it says the secretary shall notify the city clerk, city manager, or the city council as appropriate. The reality is that it's not the responsibility of the secretary to have direct communications with the council. Upon receipt of any resignation, the city manager or its designee is going to notify the city council.
Okay.
I mean, because we're required to.
Upon receipt, which I don't know why receipt is capitalized there. I just noticed that too. Upon receipt of a member resignation, the city manager
Or its
or its
designee
designee.
shall
Okay.
notify the city council. And then take out the word as appropriate, because you can't pick or choose there. You gotta notify the council, they're the governing body. Section 4.01, last sentence of A is an alpha, regular meetings may be canceled. This is just some of those pet peeves. Cancellation, 2 L's, 1 L, canceled as 1 L.
You're 1L.
Yeah, I'm a 1 L, I'm a 1 L.
Okay. I'll change it.
That's up to you. But I'm going to jump to section 4.02 agenda. E is in Edward. It says agenda packets for regular meetings will be provided to the members in advance of the scheduled ZBA meeting. What does advance mean? Is that 5 days, 10 days,
5 minutes.
5 minutes? I mean, at the end of the day, you really have to be specific of, is it 7
About
days?
that last
We talked
time, and
about
since
that.
there's a 14-day notice is required, weren't we talking about?
We did.
Yeah, we did talk about that.
Because you all need time to review this stuff.
For a public meeting, there's a 14-day.
I'll bet you it's in your minutes. What page of those 7-page minutes is this on? Stand by, we're gonna go down into the bowels of the minutes.
Oh, enough of the bowels.
I hope you all are finding this useful. If not, I can leave.
It's on page 3, under Article 7, overlaps,
Chairman Young stated that the 5 days was more in reference to packet delivery. I'm sorry, let me speak.
I remember we said something
Ms.
about,
Hyde stated that the department has to publish 17 days in advance, so the board will know ahead of time. Matthew Montahan stated that law, the board cannot have a meeting if not published in 14 days.
what page you're on?
This is
Page
the
4.
second half of 3.
Oh,
Typically, the packets are out the Friday before the meeting.
So the Friday before the Tuesday,
Right.
is that enough time for you all to
Well,
review them,
at
digest
the
them,
last
be
meeting,
prepared?
at the last meeting, we indicated that that would be fine.
Okay, so,
So long as it's in my hand by Friday afternoon. Checks in the mail, doesn't cut it, because
This was,
and we talked about that in this meeting.
This package was sent out at 9:58 a.m. on Friday.
That's fine. But I'm
we're
just
okay
saying-
with email?
What?
We're okay with email being
Yeah,
sent
but
out?
you remember the one actual case
Mhm.
or the last one that we did? I had a whole packet, a manila envelope of stuff that I got. And then because there were,
and how did you get that envelope? Was it delivered to you? Did you have to pick it up?
Yeah,
It
it
was
was delivered.
I think it was delivered. I don't think I got it until Saturday, though. I think I gave it to somebody on Friday, and then I didn't actually receive it until Saturday. And I rode by the property and looked at it, trying to understand the topographical issues that were in it and things of that nature. And we have to have enough time. I don't mind it being Friday, so long as it's in my hands on Friday with all of those supporting documents and exhibits. But I need enough time to read it, digest it. And I know a lot of these will be relatively simple, like I want a goat in my backyard, but
I don't know, you can't get approval for goats on a piece of property, So that, sometimes they get contentious.
What was that?
Tim Poor's request for a conditional use.
Oh, what I heard was we couldn't get conditional use for goats in a pool.
yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay. You were
We've
referring
had a lot of
to
those, haven't we?
pool, not pool. I'm like, why are we wanting goats in pools, and are they swimming? But, okay, never mind, I'm sorry.
These are dancing goats.
Dancing goats. Yes. We don't have dancing on the streets,
So
All right,
I'm not gonna say they're gonna be simple.
So do you want
Okay, no,
4
but I-
business days, 5 days
that's what I'm
before a
saying.
meeting, like, 72 hours, 96 hours?
I think if the package is available Friday,
But suppose you have a special called meeting, so that's why I'm saying is, you have
Yeah.
to account for everything, not just, so that's why I'm really asking.
Well, now we're saying, by getting it on Friday before Tuesday, that's 4 days.
So calendar days.
4 calendar days.
4 calendar days.
But
Maybe we want to do,
why don't we do 5 calendar days? That would put it to Thursday. And I know, now I don't want to press staff, because I know,
Press them.
but they got to get the exhibits and things in and copy them all. And
If they can't handle it, we'll replace the secretary.
the,
All those in favor, say aye. Is that gonna cause a consternation with the process? Yeah.
yeah, and I think,
like I said, if it's a simple thing like goats in the pool, that won't take that much longer, too much to research out. But if you've got multiple
Packets.
parties
Right.
involved
or
or multiple
if
packages
there's
even.
more than one.
more one agenda item,
Yeah.
yeah.
If we have multiple variances that are,
Especially if it's mixed use or large multifamily or something of that nature, commercial, then the issues can be more complex and you need to we need to make sure we have enough time to understand the issues. And David, if we have to get assistance from the city attorney or somebody who could give us some legal opinions about.
Or perhaps just go to the city hall and take a bigger view of the record or something of that nature of the application than what's included in our packet. Maybe a plat or something like that.
Yeah,
You need to be able to coordinate that time with
Yeah.
staff versus just showing up the day of and throwing them all in the malaise.
and I know you guys know, probably sometimes you get a set of plans, that thick, and they're 3 feet, about 4 feet or something like that. I don't need pavement cross sections usually or something like that, but still the topos and the proposed,
Is 5 calendar
improvements.
days,
what?
5 calendar days sufficient time to?
Yeah, I think that would be right.
That would give you Friday and Monday and Tuesday morning to, if you needed to go to City Hall to look at something?
Yeah,
5 calendar days.
5 calendar days before the meeting.
So Tuesday, Monday, Saturday. Excuse me. Tuesday, Monday, Sunday, Saturday, Friday. So 5 calendar days includes the day of the meeting.
Yeah, that
Right.
includes the day of the
Okay.
meeting.
Okay.
Thursday, though. Would it include the day?
Thursday afternoon, yeah.
Right, that would really be 6 days if you're including the meeting.
Right.
No, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Well, depends on how you do it. If you start from,
If they're going out on Thursday,
or if you start from 6 o'clock on Thursday, then it's till Friday, till Saturday, till Sunday, till Monday, till Tuesday.
yes, sir.
Then that's 5 calendar days,
Yeah.
5 24-hour periods prior to the calling the meeting to order. And if we get it a little earlier on Thursday, then that's gravy.
If you don't like it, just change it.
True.
What if we did it by hours instead? Just to,
24 times 5.
right, this is what I'm bringing up the calculator for.
120 hours before
28.
the meeting?
120 hours, yeah. Yeah, that's probably way too,
Oh, that's a little
getting
too
in the
tight,
minutia, yeah. All right, 5 calendar days, not including the day of the meeting, so it'd be going on Thursday then.
Yeah.
Right,
Well,
I would just leave the verge 5 calendar days.
okay.
All right.
and I thought this was going to be a short meeting.
I'm sorry. I can leave.
No.
You can adjourn. 4.03,
Take him out,
special
Chair.
called meetings. You have here on page 4, comply with all notice requirements for meetings as described herein in accordance with. But then down here in section 4.06, you have a whole section that says public notice ZBA meetings shall be provided in accordance with the provisions of the Georgia Open Meetings Act, the reality is you sort of kind of have a duplicate, even though it says herein. You have special called meetings and meetings. All meetings, whether they're special called or regular called or work sessions, are required to be in compliance with the Open Records and Open Meetings Act.
Hmm.
So I would, just, shorten that up, if you will. I'm not even sure that it needs to say that they must be comply, because the reality is, if they don't, it's not a meeting, it's invalidated. I mean, it's up to you if you all want to have all that extra verbiage. It's cool with me.
Any thoughts on that?
I think probably however you want to clean it up would be fine with me, but you're right. We have to comply with the law, whether it's a regularly scheduled or some other meeting. And I think the same notice applies. I don't know that we need a separate section necessarily.
Okay. So you strike that last sentence in 4.03 then? The called special meetings must comply with the notice and
Yeah.
so on. All right, I'll strike that.
In fact, that whole 4.03
If you change regular meetings, 4.01 regular meetings to all scheduled meetings,
Oh, well, yeah.
that would include special called meetings, it would include workshops, it would. At some point, we'll probably get a refresher from David Mecklin, training-wise, and that would probably fall into what, a workshop?
Well, yeah, and part of the role of the secretary is to make sure that you always stay in compliance. I'll give you my nickel tour of being a city manager. Two most important things. Number one, always make the council look good. Number two, don't ever take credit for anything. The council's always got the credit. Number three, keep them out of jail. I try my best. So, same thing for your secretary, same role.
Keep her out of jail.
Make y'all look good, keep y'all out of jail, don't take credit for anything, boom, move on. We're all good.
So
So
for-
same thing with the meetings is that, you declare when you're having meetings, but then you also state how special called meetings can be. And then really, which is appropriate, and then as Matthew suggested, that last sentence, the called special meetings can be just struck out.
So Michael, are you saying then that you want to make 4.03, maybe make it like a 4.01C? Move that up?
No,
Is that
again,
the remaining portion of that section? Or are you going to keep its own title?
yeah, let's keep regular and special.
Okay.
Do we need to include anything else?
Nope, because you're still required to have all the same guidance of the law no matter what. And if we don't follow it, your meeting's invalid anyway.
Okay.
All right, section 4.04, quorum, B as in boy. I'd encourage you to drastically clean this up. The reality is, at this point, the council has designated you as 5 members. I would just simply base your verbiage on 5 members as opposed to what they may or may not do in the future. That's 5 members, it's a 5-member board. If they change it, then certainly amend your bylaws, but, you
So-
have a quorum shall consist of 3 members, period, boom, leave it at that. Because you're 5 members, and you've declared that, and I just delete everything else. Now, here's
What about the
interesting
sentence
thing.
on the,
Here's a fascinating thing. You don't do Robert's Rules of Order, but you have to have a quorum to open a meeting, but you don't have to have a quorum to continue a meeting. But a motion for adjournment's always in order.
Oh, yeah, I love that about Roberts.
So,
so what about the second sentence, that the affirmative vote of the majority of the members present shall be required before the ZBA shall approve or deny an item? Can you keep that in there then?
you have a quorum in, so again, you have majority, majority is 50% plus 1, so you don't really have to spell it out. You have a quorum that is 3 members, and that's going to allow you to open up. And then you have the affirmative vote of the majority, which is always 50% 1, but it's got to be 50% of those that are here.
Of the
So,
members present.
exactly. So that's why, and it's the members present, I mean, which is very critical. So, so make it a sandwich, get rid of the, peanut butter in the middle, and you ought to be good. Does that make sense?
That's what makes it a sandwich.
Exactly. I know, but we're going to get rid of the peanut butter.
I didn't get the sandwich analogy.
Oh, okay. So a quorum shall consist of 3 members, period.
Period.
Okay?
Right.
Then you pick up and say, the affirmative vote of the majority of the members present shall be required before ZBA shall
So
approve or deny
keep
an
that language then.
Yeah.
Okay. And then part C, any comments on part C there?
I didn't mark any. I
Okay.
thought I read it, but I'm sure I did. Okay.
Okay.
And section 4.06, notice, A is in alpha. You have no less than 14 days. Earlier, you had mentioned calendar days. So in this case, I just opened the opportunity, are you talking calendar or business days? I assume you're speaking calendar. In legalese, they may just say calendar days, but I just think that you ought to spell it out.
Calendar days.
it'll be important for, it's like, well, and the reason that's important,
Well, the legal requirement is 14 calendar days.
Yeah.
We should stick with that.
the reason that you spell out the word calendar is you can get someone that says, well, there's a holiday in there. Well, yeah, but it's calendar days. So, whatever's on the calendar. Moving along, we're doing good. All right, we'll go to page 5. C as in Charlie, second paragraph on the top. Members who failed to fulfill, I think you all dealt with that. So I'll jump past. I'm going to jump to then section 4.09, B as in boy. A person wishing to address the ZBA must sign up to speak in accordance with the policy of the city council. What's that policy?
It's in their bylaws.
Pardon me?
It's in their bylaws.
The city councils?
Don't they have their little, you have to sign in and you,
That's their procedure, but they don't have a policy.
oh, it's not their policy?
Yeah.
Well, then you need to change that to their procedure.
Well, the reality is your bylaws is your procedure. So, if you want them to write in, just say, specify exactly what you want as a body, because it's your board.
Okay.
Well, the city doesn't have a standard procedure for public meetings or public participation.
Okay. So did you know that public comment's not required under the Georgia Open Meetings Act under any condition except for public hearings?
I think so, yes.
So,
So we could just take that B and put a period, must sign up to speak, period.
Yep.
Take out in accordance with the policy, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
And then just start the next sentence with sign-up sheets will be available.
exactly. And then the last line, it says, a copy shall also be provided to the secretary for inclusion in the minutes of the meetings. When do they have to provide that? At the meeting, prior to the meeting, within 5 days of the meeting? When do you want? Immediately? I mean, obviously, if they are got written materials, when do you want those given to your secretary?
Yeah.
Right now, the city council, for a city council meeting, they're provided
Should be immediately.
at the time.
So I would
If
say
we have to have a packet 5 days in advance. I mean,
This is
they-
a member of the public coming to
Right.
you and saying, I have some additional information on that goat pool that I'm proposing. I'd like to distribute it to you. And they hand it to you. Of course, first thing you ask them is, how come part of this is eaten on the corner?
Yeah.
Well, I did say it was a goat pool, right?
Mhm.
So,
Who'd
that
have-
is
Is that
immediately.
like a van pool?
Yeah.
Carpool.
But,
Bad idea. Okay.
Yeah, just
So,
coming from my own experience, whenever I have before a ZBA or a planning commission, we always submit it at the time of the presentation before the, so.
but it depends on what they're, God, if we've had some monster package and they want to bring in stuff that they are submitting in addition in support, we've got to have time to digest that and see if it impacts the information previously submitted in the actual application. And now, if it's one thing, if somebody's got a recommendation about something they want to see different in our bylaws or something, that's a little different. But if you're talking about modifying or adding to a submission for consideration and they bring it to hand out at the meeting, that can be, of course, we can always table the discussion for another month, right?
So to address that, if I may, Mr. Thomas, so this is when they bring the additional information. This particular thing that we're referring to is, if they're bringing in something and they're going to present to you, at what point do they have to give a copy for the record? Is it immediately? Is it, within 24 hours of the meeting? The second question, the second part of where you're alluding to is, you as a governing board can say, whoa, you just gave us a mammoth amount of packet. We appreciate this. Walk us through it. This, we're going to go ahead and potentially table this to the next meeting. It gives us an opportunity to digest it. you as a governing body have that authority to decide when you're going to affect your vote, or even if you're going to affect a vote. So, two different things, if I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah, that's okay with me so long as they're not expecting to have to, for us to have to accept it at that meeting and act on it at that meeting.
I think public participation is going to be slightly different than the applicant
Yes.
before us, because the applicant is going to have all their documentation into the city,
They're required to.
ahead of time. Now, the
These are
public
your
participation is
pro
going to be the neighbor next door. So I don't think,
Present you a petition, for instance.
I don't think the chances of a significantly thick package from the public,
Ms. Lansing.
well, unless it's something that Mr. Flowers is bringing before the,
Or Mr. Thomas.
Believe me,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a surefire way to torpedo themselves, that's why you have the packet requirement. So in this one, all you really have to address is, do you want that, shall they be required to give your secretary a copy of that immediately? And these are members of the public. So this will be like, Mr. Chairman, I would like to present to you a petition. Well, that's fine, but he's not the record. The record's right there.
right,
So when you have this, and I know I keep honing on this, is shall provided to the secretary. Well, when?
at the same time.
So.
At the time the person
the
addresses the
Well, I just
ZBA.
say immediately.
Yeah, immediately.
Okay, or immediately.
When they present it to the ZBA, they also provide the copy to the secretary.
Now, not to belabor that, but when you go to C, must file
Too
written
late
request
now
with the
to belabor
secretary. When? You know,
To see,
yeah, it's like, I wish to speak on an issue that's not posted on the agenda. Well, you're a governed body. If someone comes up and says, hey, I want to add this, I want to add chickens and pools. Chairman says, hey, all in favor? Yep, okay, chickens and pools. All right, you can't take action on that, but you could add it, because
they
you
can,
have a public
they can
agenda.
speak, they can air their grievance or view, but have to understand that we're not all obliged to act on it that night.
Correct.
we add something to the agenda, public notice wasn't given 14 days.
Right.
No, you can discuss it, you just can't take action.
Right, we can't
Right.
take action.
But you got this bigger issue here that says must file written request with the secretary. Well, when? How much time? Like a day before, 24 hours before, 72 hours before,
7 days.
7 days?
I think that's.
I like 7 days, because that way if she's gonna send a packet to us, then that falls under the same 5 days to us as a regular submission.
So 7 calendar days?
Yeah,
I don't.
Huh? What?
No, I think
Is that bad?
24 hours prior
it's up
to
to
the
you guys.
meeting.
If they're going to send us something 7 days in advance, well, they still can't get it on the agenda because that's published 14 days in advance.
Well, we can discuss it, even though it's not on the agenda, we just can't vote on it.
This is a discussion item, not an item to
Right.
address, but you want to be very, very careful. This is like public comment. So you're saying in here, if a person wishes to speak on an issue, you either have public comment or not. So what you're saying is, hey, if you're coming up that podium, you're going to fill out all the stuff, but you also have to fill out something in a written request. Tell me you want on the agenda, because you want to come up here and talk about something that's not on this packet. So you want to be clear as to what you're really telling the public from your bylaws.
How does the city council handle that now?
Anyone in public comment, come up and talk about anything they want.
That's what I thought.
They sit on their hands, and they should smile and say, thank you for your comments.
Right.
Sometimes they engage, that's always interesting.
Sorry, I don't,
Seems to be the simplest way to do it.
yeah,
If it's not on
agreed.
the agenda, we have no obligation to act.
that's the key. We have to have the fortitude to know when to act or when to defer.
You as a
Something on
ZBA are not required to take public comment, except on the issues before you as ZBA members.
But see, the burden's on the applicant to provide their package of information and all of its supporting documentation
Right, but this is, we're talking about though, a non-applicant person off the street has an entirely different issue for something that's not on the agenda whatsoever. That's
This
what,
would be
that's
like
kind of
this
what we're
gentleman
thinking.
in the public coming up, and he decides he wants to talk about tax code. And he signs in, and you give him 3 minutes, if you so choose, and so you're obligating yourself to listen to him talk about tax code for 3 minutes,
You're right.
because you've opened up the Pandora's box.
You're right. This is something not on the agenda.
Right.
We don't, though,
Does
then
staff have a
specifically
recommendation?
state if they are want to speak on something on the agenda. Do we actually say what sort of form that, like the neighbor that's in opposition to the request?
That's under a different guideline, which is the public hearing. So when you have a public hearing, you're obligated to open up pro and con, and you're to balance it. You're opening section 4.09 up to basically wide open public comment, saying, just bring it on. But you don't represent the public. You only represent the council on the appeal that's before you. Does that make sense?
So what we have to do is be self-governing enough that if this comes up and they've got a mountain of information that they want to present,
I'd recommend you just delete 4.09 altogether and get out of the public comment business and leave that to the elected officials. They don't pay you enough to deal with that. But that's up to you. You're going to hear from the public on each item on your agenda as part of your public hearing process.
Yeah, he's right. I see what he's saying.
I don't object to that. Only thing I'm objecting to, if somebody comes in with 50 pages of documentation that they say refutes what's in the applicant's package,
Yes.
and we get it at the time of the meeting, I mean, there's no way to give a valid consideration to that. You can't read into just all that. And if we say, well, we'll put it off, then I think the original applicant has a valid objection to make that says, hey, wait a minute. We need this. We need to move forward with this. You're unduly delaying me and costing me for what I believe are specious delaying tactics on the part of this person who owns an adjacent parcel.
Somewhere in the
Anybody who-
city documents, there's also a 45-day limit for a decision to be made.
Correct. And they'd be hard pressed to make that. So you all could actually table to a date certain, which you always have a right to do, which is actually the same thing as doing a special call meeting. So you all have that latitude. So I hear you. I know where you're coming from, but that is on existing agenda items, and you as a governing board will always make that decision as to, do we want to make decision tonight or motion to table? 4.9, totally different. 4.9 allows anyone in the public to come up and talk to you about any single thing they want to, whether it's related to something, they could talk about anything. And so my suggestion is take out 4.09, get out of the business of public comment, because your public comment obligation under the law deals with the items on your agenda that are up for appeal only.
I think we need to do that thing, because I don't want somebody to come in here and spend 30 minutes talking about
This
the weather.
public participation
I think I just
should, this public participation should state is limited to
Well,
public hearing items.
I'll do this. We'll change the title of 4.09 to public hearing, and I want to strike A through E. Because F is the only one dealing with public hearings in accordance with the ZPA and open meetings law.
You're a genius, Matthew.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
I've only just did what he said. Leave B in,
Must sign it, they must sign in.
the sign-up sheet, okay. All right,
You always have to have a record in a hearing of who's talking.
all right, so I'm gonna leave B in for the sign-up sheet purpose, so that's what I'll do.
Okay. All right. Page 6, last sentence of the first paragraph. What is a certified agenda?
The one that we agreed on.
Let's wait, page 6.
The only thing I sign off on are the minutes of the last meeting. Once they're approved. And the agenda itself is approved in a vote at the time of the meeting, you know.
Well, if we're talking about closed meetings in
Yeah.
4.10, closed sessions,
Yeah. It says a certified agenda shall be made of all closed sessions of the ZBA.
that, why
What is
instead
a
of agenda?
certified
Well,
agenda?
there wouldn't be an agenda, because if we're having a closed session, it's not a,
And you actually, under Open Meetings Act, actually have to spell what subsection you're going in the closed session
Yeah.
for anyway. But there wouldn't be a certified agenda, so I was trying to figure out.
we just say a copy of the secretary will provide minutes for whatever's with
You
us.
still have to, the minutes wouldn't even be public. I mean, so
Well,
what I'm trying to do is understand what you all were trying to accomplish by that.
We were copying, we were doing a lot of that R&D.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that's what happened
You
there.
might want to get rid of that last line then,
Okay.
Okay,
okay? And then page 7, Article 8 amendments, says the ZBA shall have the power to alter, amend, or repeal the bylaws. Only the council can approve your bylaws.
all right.
Okay.
Or adopt new bylaws to be submitted to the council for approval.
Anything, amendments, anything that you do on bylaws have to be
Yeah.
approved by them. They're your governing body. That's all for now. I rest my case. Y'all can buy me lunch now.
I'm hoping Mama's got dinner.
What you cooking tonight? Can we call her?
I don't know.
Are there any
I only
other
have leftover Chinese in the fridge.
comments, changes, recommendations on our bylaws?
I think that's pretty thorough review by now,
I
so.
think you ought to give them 24 hours to update the document with all these changes and send it all to us. All those in favor?
I think,
Second.
24 hours long enough?
What do you mean? We're asking
as long-
Matthew to
as
do
long
that.
as Matthew gets it to Madam Secretary.
And then
so we
she's
can get
got 5
days
business
ahead of time.
days to circulate it to y'all, and then that gives us 14 days to advertise, and then if you want public comment, we're going to have to get a flow chart.
Speaking if we want public comments, does that mean we take public comment off of our agenda? Because
Um,
we only do public hearings?
Again, it is up to you all. If this body wants to take public comment, you have that lawful right. The question you have to ask yourself is, well, why are you taking public comment? Because what are you going to do with it? I mean, you're not representative of the public. You're taking public comment on issues that are before you. You're like the jury. You're the judge, if you will. You're a judicial, arm of the council. So you're making decisions.
I think then what we do is if somebody wants to come in and make a public comment on something not an item before us for consideration, we simply say that the appropriate forum for that is the city council.
Yeah, or your zoning board, zoning planning board.
Yeah.
Because it's not, you're a board of appeals, it's not, so, have at it if you want to have the public come in, but before you go down that route, I'm just, this is what you pay me for.
I say we remove the public comment part off the minutes.
Yeah.
Since we pulled it from the bylaws and
Right.
left public hearing, we should
Right.
not have it in our agenda.
Yeah, we had to have a mandatory public hearing underneath the law for what we do, but
Joe, have I been helpful to you, harmful? Should I just go away, come back?
Always a
we
pleasure.
thought we would have this done by now, but now we have to come back. So I think you owe us.
I
dinner.
just got a copy today. I did get it just today, right? Okay, I thought so.
This one.
Yeah, it showed up on my desk, but I've been out of the office all day, so I literally just
Is
went through
is there a
this.
motion to table the bylaws until the changes we discussed can be made and represented?
Are we gonna do a special call meeting? Is that our intent here? Or are we just do a regular meeting, come back in a month?
Is there a need for us to get these bylaws before the city council, before our next, before 2 months, or?
Certainly, if you turn them around, we can get them on your next council agenda for adoption. That's up to you, which means that you should have a special called meeting so that you're all comfortable with clearing them and being done with them. If not, fine, wait another month. I mean, unless you got a big case. Do we have any big cases so far coming? No, don't have any big cases yet, but, so that's up to you.
I do like the idea of getting them over with while they're so fresh with us instead of waiting another.
We'll table them to the next meeting and ask the Madam Secretary to schedule a special meeting 2 weeks from now?
2 weeks from now.
Is that,
That may be too late
is that,
for the
well,
council.
14,
Because I close out my packet
On Thursday of next week, I believe.
of closing. Yeah,
Okay.
so you would need to have a meeting. What day of the week is today?
Tuesday.
16th, Tuesday the 16th.
Yeah, next Tuesday would be a good day. Do we have any conflicts next Tuesday?
I'm out of
Yeah.
town next Tuesday.
Pardon me?
I'm gonna be out of town all week next week.
Okay.
30th would be 2 weeks from today.
You're allowed to call in, how many times? You could do a Skype call,
I mean, if that's what y'all want me to do. I'll be in California.
Yeah, under the Open Meetings Act, you're allowed to have a Skype call, but, that's just trying to help you. Because I
These-
close out the packet.
That's what I'm trying to think, is, it's 9/6 is the next meeting.
May I look
So
at your
you're-
calendar, sir?
So I'm looking, yeah.
Thursday,
All right, so
the Thursday before Tuesday, the 30th might be.
this is September, so the council work session's the 29th, today's the 15th. So that means that I have to have everything to the council, to the Madam Secretary by the 23rd. She'll prepare the packets for them on the 26th, which is Monday. So,
You said the council meeting is August 29th or September 29th?
what month are we right now?
We're in August.
We're in August. I was looking at the September meeting.
Okay,
There we go.
so this means that the council meeting is September, their work session's the 1st, is that correct? Or is it the 25th? All right, we gotta do this the old-fashioned way. Can I do this the old-fashioned way?
Mhm.
You have a browser on here somewhere, right?
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna go to villarica.org. This one? There we go. And we're going to go up here to here, government. Would they have posted that already, the meeting? Oh, darn. All right. Let's do this. She'll survey you all on a meeting date. Give us a chance to get back to make
We're
sure
out of town next week.
All right.
that we, yeah. Cause I can get you a little latitude, meaning like, y'all could like have a meeting that Monday, that the packet's put together and we can get the draft or whatever to them. Cause you can circulate, now here's very critical, and this is very, 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 very important. The secretary can send you all your working document. You all have the opportunity to send comments directly back to your secretary, and that is not a meeting. So as long as she is corresponding directly, don't email everyone.
Don't reply all.
So she can actually work on a document, and then, so if you send it, so during next week, can send it to you, it's like, any issues, comments, problems, respond back to me. Any comments, issue, respond back to me. She do that with all the members. So therefore, that Monday, you could have a meeting, which is the Monday before the Thursday, and if you're all good, great, we put it before the council for the work session, and then the following Tuesday. So I'll work with you and help you where I can if that is your goal.
Well, Matthew, you're the one that's doing most of the
I could probably have these
copy
done
and
tonight.
pasting and
I could
typing, and
do this tonight, honestly, just have it around to tonight,
so you
so.
would have it to to Madam Secretary in time for a meeting when?
Have
Whatever,
one Friday.
yeah. We don't have to notice it, I guess.
You need
No,
24
it's a
hours,
special.
but, you have enough time, because all you're doing is approving, but you're not adopting the minutes, and then they would go to council, so you would be fine with a Friday meeting.
Friday?
Otherwise, it's a week from Monday.
Are we
Yes, sir.
talking about a daytime meeting or a
It's up to
Friday
you.
night?
You could. Again, because you're not officially adopting your bylaws.
Yeah, this Friday works, the 19th works for me.
I've got Main Street Advisory in the morning, but
We both have that, so. I can make it work, whatever it is, so. We can meet here at 9 o'clock. Main Street's at 9:30. We can meet here at 9 o'clock, just vote on it and
You could
be
hold your
done.
meeting at City Hall if you so chose.
you want to do
Except the
Nine-
bylaws say,
9 o'clock at City Hall Friday
Mhm.
morning?
works for me. You know, the bylaws do say the whole,
You don't have
Mr.
adopted bylaws yet, sir.
I know. I'm just trying to throw a little monkey wrench in it. Okay, well, works for me. 9 a.m. on Friday, the 19th at City Hall.
And I'll just check my schedule. So leave it open that the Madam Secretary will confirm and then notice you all tomorrow. That way I can at least check my schedule.
Okay.
What time Friday?
9 a.m.
The next item on the agenda, do I need a motion to table this until the next meeting
On the 19th?
on the 19th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
There being no other business.
Well, are there any staff comments, additional staff comments?
No?
He's used his allocation of,
We have public comment on our agenda that we approved for today, so there being no, are there any public comments?
Not such about the chicken. Rooster the crows down the street, dogs bark down the street, constantly.
nobody signed up for any public comments.
Let me tell you what I'm gonna put on my mind and give it to you. So, a piece.
A pizza?
Well, she probably needs nourishment, she's been writing so. All right,
I'll move, we adjourn.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Good job.
All righty. Thank you, sir, for your help.
Most important
On that.
motion of a meeting.
The most.